I call Stuart McMillan to be followed by Liam Kerr. Mr McMillan.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. First of all, this budget is set against the backdrop of some of the toughest conditions we have faced as a Scottish Parliament. We've had to contend with 14 years of Westminster austerity, compounded by a Brexit Scotland didn't vote for, which is wiping billions from the UK economy, exacerbated by the Trust quartile mini-budget disaster that further contributed to inflation rates rising and also the cost of living deepening. Yet, despite being presented with a profoundly challenging financial situation not of Scotland's making, this budget sets out to protect people, sustain public services, support a growing sustainable economy and address the climate and nature emergencies. I will be voting for the budget, but I think we all recognise that we could spend more money on every single department, but if the money is not there. At the heart of this budget is the social contract with the people of Scotland, where those with the broadest shoulders are asked to contribute a little more. It's a budget that reflects our shared values as a nation and speaks to the kind of Scotland that we actually want to be, one where everyone has access to universal services and entitlements, and those in need of an extra helping hand receive targeted additional support. The Scottish Child Payment is an example of this. Now, given the reckless economic mismanagement on display at Westminster, it's become increasingly important to prioritise the most vital, the NHS and social security. And that means supporting those on the lowest incomes, including lifting kids out of poverty, despite the Scottish budget being slashed by Westminster. Presiding Officer, I'm sure, like other members across the chamber, health is one of the key issues constituents raise with me. And although health is fully devolved, I often remind constituents that without the full levers of power, it's misleading to treat Scotland as if it were already independent, when considering how devolved areas are funded. For example, the Tories delivered a 3% real terms cut to England's NHS in their autumn statement. Yet the SNP and Green Government has just increased the frontline NHS budget in real terms. And that's a choice. That's a choice this Scottish Government has made, despite the UK Government providing less funding in this area. Now, when we also compare Scotland's health record with that of Labour-run Wales, we've got more GPs, more dentists and more qualified nurses and midwives per 100,000 people. Now, the SNP and Scottish Government have also protected free eye exams, whilst people in England and Wales must pay for this service. In fact, people across Scotland have reaped several benefits since the SNP came to office in 2007, including free prescriptions, free school meals, free childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds, free bus travel for under-22s, free dental care until the age of 26, 7 additional welfare benefits, including the Scottish Child Payment, as I've already mentioned, and publicly owned rail services. Now, free university tuition is also saving Scottish students thousands of pounds. But only last week, Michael Mara suggested Labour would consider reintroducing backdoor tuition fees. Now, Michael Mara also touched upon earlier regarding the windfall tax. But Michael Mara has got to be honest with the population. The windfall taxes that he's talking about are the global profits of all the energy companies, not the profits solely made within the UK. Is Michael Mara actually suggesting that a future Labour government, potentially and possibly later on this year, is actually going to attempt to charge a windfall tax on the profits made in France or elsewhere? If he wants to answer that, I'll take his intervention.
Michael Mara.
I appreciate the member giving way. What Labour is proposing is a real windfall tax that's going to pay for a green prosperity plan, which will deliver 50,000 jobs in Scotland, including a publicly owned energy generation company headquartered in Scotland. Those are the kind of transformation projects that it takes by taxing the energy companies, whilst this government appears to believe that somebody with £28,000 has the broad shoulders and they should pay the costs.
Stuart McMillan.
Michael Mara did not answer the question that I posed to him. The question was about the global profits, not the profits solely made within the UK. So although Labour like to think that they know better when it comes to the interests of the people of Scotland, their rhetoric, as we've already just heard there, says it all. We also read in the Green Telegraph last week that Jackie Baillie called for the ring-fencing funding to be given to the treatment of long COVID patients. Now, whilst I also want to see more money being spent supporting people suffering with long COVID, I found it strange, hold on a minute, Ms Baillie, I found it strange that Ms Baillie sought for the Barnett consequentials to be ring-fenced for long COVID, when her party are so vehemently against any sort of ring fencing. I think this shows how the argument can change depending on the politics to be used, Ms Bailey. Now, Presiding Officer, as with almost every other budget process, local government finance is a focus for Labour, who year upon year shout about cuts, yet never want to accept that Scotland's budget has been reduced by the Tory austerity budgets for the last 14 years. Budgets are about choices, and I'm pleased that the Finance Secretary is providing additional resources for local government. It's now a choice for local councils as to whether they implement the fully funded council tax freeze or place an additional burden on households. In Inverclyde, Labour Council Group want to introduce a 2-year budget that will see the council tax increase by 8.2% next year and then a further 6% the year after. In contrast, the SNP Council Group have proposed a 1-year budget which implements a council tax freeze, keeping more money in my constituents' pockets. And it's interesting that Inverclyde Labour are proposing a 2-year budget when surely if Sir Keir Starmer wins the next general election, they would expect him, I would imagine, to actually give Scotland more money. But clearly they don't believe that's going to happen, and we've heard nothing about that this afternoon, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, I will be supporting this budget today, but certainly I think, like everyone across the chamber, I would like to see more money being invested in every area, but that's only possible with independence for Scotland.